All right, good morning. We'll call today's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer. Vice Chair Sonier. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge. Vice Chair Sonier.
Present.
Alderman Browning. Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
All right, with that, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, October 14th, 2025.
Second.
Madam Clerk, it was moved by Alderman Browning and seconded by Alderman Aldridge. Can you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer. Vice Chair Sonier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning. Aye. Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 5 aye votes.
All right, with that, we successfully approved the minutes from Tuesday, October 14th. I'm going to pass it over to Alderman Cone so that I can be recognized on Board Bill 4. Thank you, Alderman Cone. Madam Clerk, can you please read the summary for Board Bill 84?
A board bill recommended by the Board of Estimate Apportionment authorizing the mayor to submit the 2026 Annual Action Plan to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to enter into and execute agreements with HUD for the recipient of 2026 Community Development Block Grants, 2026 Home Investment Partnership, 2026 Emergency Solution Grant, and 2026 Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS funds, appropriating CDBG, Home, ESG, and HOPWA grant funds, authorizing the Director of the Community Development Administration, Department of Human Services, and Department of Health to make, negotiate, and execute contracts as may be necessary to expend funds and containing severability and emergency clauses.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. We know that this is an annual action plan that we do every year here down at the City of St. Louis through CDA and hear it through our HUS committee, but I'm excited today to hear it even more because of the alignment that I know it's going to have and the fierce urgency we have now as the city is going through recovery and rebuilding from the May 16th tornado. So seeing how we can pull from wherever we can to see hope of rebuilding, I think is what we are all committed to. So with that, I'm going to bring up Director Pfeffer and his team for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning, honorable committee members. My name is Noel Pfeffer. I lead the city's Community Development Administration. I'm joined by our Director of Compliance, Rashonda Alexander, and my executive assistant who keeps me sane, Kevin Ellison. As Alderwoman Clark Hubbard noted, this is an annual appropriation, so you all have seen and are familiar, I think, with the process. So we'll keep this presentation, by popular request, short and sweet with plenty of room for questions. But just as a roadmap, we'll start with an overview of CDA's work and in particular CDBG formula funds before diving into the 2026 annual action plan. As you all know, CDA serves as a clearinghouse for a variety of federal, state, and local funds. We support affordable housing, social services, and much more. CDA was founded in 1974 out of the consolidation of a variety of city development agencies to administer HUD dollars. 1974 is when the Community Development Block Grant was first created. And in fact, if the funding had been indexed to inflation back in the 1970s, the city, instead of receiving about $18 million a year in CDBG funds, would receive closer to $90 million a year. And so it just speaks to the importance of maintaining these funds. And I will include a brief update on the federal landscape. Well, actually, I can provide that now to say that we have seen this program continue to evolve at the federal level. The Office of Management and Budget actually recommended fully eliminating both the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Home Program. However, the House of Representatives restored funding in full to the Community Development Block Grant, the full previous year amount of $3.3 billion. And then when it went over to the Senate restored funding in full to the Home Program to $1.25 billion, while proposing a cut to CDBG from $3.3 billion to $3.1 billion. And that proposed cut is why we do estimate that our allocation for 2026 will be about 5% lower this year than it has been in years past. To be clear, we do not know at this point where the final appropriation will be. Of course, we're in the midst of a shutdown, and so we don't know where the House and Senate and White House will ultimately find a reconciliation. But we do expect that CDBG and Home will continue to be funded, as both the Senate and the House did move to restore that funding almost entirely in full. Let me know after if you have any questions pertaining to that. I'll move on now to next slide, where just a little overview of CDA's operational structure. We have a fiscal team, a compliance team, and a construction team. Our fiscal team is really the engine that works to deploy funds, and we've grown a lot in our capacity over the last 5 years. Between 2020 and 2022, we deployed an average of a little over $20 million in funds every year. In 2023, we deployed over $37 million, and in 2024, we deployed over $58 million. So pretty dramatic growth, more than doubling, nearly tripling funds dispersed to the community, and we anticipate to continued growth in 2025. So our fiscal team is doing amazing work, as are our compliance and construction teams. Our compliance team really administers the action planning process and is responsible for the action plan that we are presenting today. And our construction team really manages implementation of the housing elements of our action plan, including both housing construction and home repair. Just a word on the impact of this work and of federal funds. I think it's really important in the current context to really be clear about how impactful these federal resources are. And we produced an impact report, which we published earlier this year, and includes this graphic, which is limited to HUD programs, and shows the thousands of folks who have received food assistance, who have received youth services, senior services, who have received workforce development support and job training and affordable housing, and much more through federal funds and through our work. And when I say our work, I really want to be clear that CDA does very little directly. Our work is really driven by our partners, by the nonprofits, by the developers that implement these programs on the ground. So we're very grateful to them and proud of all their incredible work. And there's a great map as well that you can explore to learn more about this work, should you be interested in exploring further. And a few pictures here. These are just a few of the housing developments across the city funded with HUD dollars. We've got for sale single-family homes, a rehab at 8706 Annetta in Baden, a new construction in the West End. We've got the new Doorways campus, which is now open, as well as the forthcoming new Benton Park Place on the corner of Arsenal and Jefferson. And then finally, on the bottom, we have one of the several buildings, 9 buildings, I believe, that make up Marquette Homes on 3600 South Grand, where that's being funded by $1.25 million of home dollars. And again, you can see a map kind of detailing how these funds are distributed to the right there. So to kind of provide a very basic overview, we have 4 entitlement programs here in the city of St. Louis. An entitlement program is a program that the city is entitled to funding by right. We receive these funds automatically, provided that we comply with the basic compliance requirements, which I'll detail in a future slide. But these 4 programs are CDBG funds. That's about $18 million a year. This year, probably closer to $17.5 million. And that is the most flexible source of funding, provided that you are benefiting persons of low and moderate income, eliminating slums and blight, or meeting an urgent need. I should note that we do have to allocate 70% of CDBG funds, at least 70%, towards benefiting persons of low and moderate income, and also that we can only allocate up to 20% of our CDBG funds to planning and administration, and we can only allocate up to 19% of our CDBG funds for public services. And public services are consistently our most popular, most applied for category of funding. Home funds, about $3 million a year, may only be used to produce housing. Emergency Solutions Grant funds are only used to serve unhoused individuals or individuals at risk of losing their housing with supportive services, permanent housing outreach, more. And HOPWA funds are really for families living with HIV and AIDS. And HOPWA funds are administered by the Department of Health, and ESG funds are administered by the Department of Human Services, although CDA acts as the quarterback for all of these in terms of reporting to HUD. And when we talk about 70% of CDBG funds need to be used to serve low to moderate income households, what is low to moderate income? That's under 80% of area median income. So for an individual, that's going to be $57,800. For a family of 4, that's going to be $82,550. And so what you see is that even though we're talking about these folks as low to moderate income, by I think most characteristics, most definitions, these are solidly middle class folks that we are serving with CDBG funds. Moving on to the process through which we allocate these funds. Essentially, it starts with our consolidated plan, and we provided a much longer presentation last year as to the contents of our 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan, which was submitted to HUD on November 15th of 2024. Then that's the 5-year consolidated plan. Then each year we produce a action plan for how we are going to implement and fulfill the objectives of the consolidated plan. And so that 2026 action plan is produced subject to a public hearing where we solicit input on our funding priorities, a request for proposals process, which closed on September 5th and which received an unprecedented volume of applications through our new Salesforce application portal. And now the process we're in now of appropriating these funds. Once this appropriation is complete, we'll also hold an additional public hearing and then submit the action plan to HUD. The action plan needs to be submitted 45 days before the beginning of the program year, and that program year runs from January 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2026. Once we submit that action plan and HUD approves it, they will then send us a grant agreement. Typically, this does not come until much later in the year. So we expect that towards the end of 2026. And then we are also required, after we implement that action plan, we provide a consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, a CAPER, 90 days after the end of the program year, essentially telling HUD what we accomplished. So in short, we have a 5-year plan where we tell HUD what we want to do. We have a 1-year plan, action plan, where we tell HUD this is what we're going to do. Then we do it, and then 90 days after, we report out, here's what we accomplished. So another way to state all that, more specifically for this year, is that on July 3rd of 2025, we posted the timeline. We held our first public hearing on July, I believe, 18th. We issued the RFP inviting nonprofits and others to apply for our funds in early August 1st, 2025. That closed September 5th. And now we're going to be subject to appropriation, submitting the action plan November 14th of 2025, and we hope to receive HUD approval in early 2026, and with programs launching in 2026. And something important to note about how this works as well is I note that programs are launching in Q1 of 2026, but we may not have a grant agreement with HUD until later in 2026. Essentially, the way the process works is that our partners incur costs, submit those to the city once their contracts are executed, the city pays out and incurs costs, and then once we have our agreement with HUD, HUD pays the city, right? So in the same way that our subrecipients operate on a reimbursement basis where they incur costs and then we pay them, the city operates on a reimbursement basis with respect to HUD, where the city incurs costs that are then reimbursed by HUD. So with that, with no further ado, we'll get to what our 2026 action plan actually allocates resource towards. And as I noted, we are estimating a approximately 5% reduction in funding based on the Senate's proposed cuts to federal CDBG budget from $3.3 billion to $3.1 billion. And this is allocated with 19% going towards public services, 1.87 million going towards interim assistance and code enforcement, and this is really focused on maintaining LRA properties and Operation Brightside neighborhood beautification efforts, 300,000 towards the commercial facade improvement program, 3.5 million roughly towards homeowner assistance. That includes both home repair as well as down payment assistance, 3 million towards housing production and rehabilitation, 1.7 million towards economic development initiatives, 500,000 towards public improvements, and 3.5 million, approximately 20%, towards planning and administration. More specifically, we are providing 31 public services awards. As I noted, this was kind of it's always competitive, but this was even more competitive than usual. We received 96 applications. Of these, 64 were complete, and of these, 31 were awarded for public services. And so just a little bit kind of insight into how this process works in the interest of transparency. Essentially, everyone who submits an application, that application is reviewed, and our team does a completeness and eligibility review. Then for every project that is complete and eligible, every project that is complete and eligible is rated by 3 independent CDA staff and blindly, so no one knows each other's ratings as they are rating. We average out those ratings and also weight them so that if there's some individuals who are more generous with their points than others, that doesn't wind up punishing the programs themselves. And then we sort them. And essentially what we did this year and what we do every year is that we set thresholds whereby we say everyone's scoring this year was everyone scoring above 90 points is going to have their request awarded in full up to $200,000. And we did cap awards at $200,000, or you would have seen a lot fewer awards because people made some very high requests. And something that's very important to us as well is maintaining support for folks that we have funded for a long time, because one of the things about CDBG funds and HUD dollars is that they're sticky, they're difficult to deploy, they take time, especially for folks to build that capacity. And so when there are programs that have grown to rely on these funds for often years, if not decades, we treat rescinding that funding very seriously. And that's why we set that threshold of 90 points for all applications, and then for previously awarded applications, we set a threshold of 80 points to just maintain their funding at their current level. And so that's how we arrived at these 31 awards. I'm not going to speak to them all individually because that would take much too long. But you can see here and in these future slides, the only 2 that I will point out are our 2 new CDBG grantees, Operation Food Search, which is running a tornado recovery food assistance program that is obviously all the more essential and critical in the wake of an anticipated interruption to SNAP benefits. as well as Peter and Paul Community Services Yugen Shelter at the Little Sisters of the Poor. Those are only 2 new awards to new organizations this year. Although Guardian Angel and Criminal Justice Ministry did receive an additional award as well, but they were previously being awarded funds. Here are our remaining public services awards, and with that, I'll turn back to interim assistance. We increased funding for the Land Reutilization Authority from $1 million, where it was last year, to $1.5 million in anticipation of the additional ARPA funds that were allocated running out. And so we want to try and, as much as possible, maintain an expanded maintenance schedule. And then you also see funding there for Operation Brightside. One thing I'll note is that while unfortunately we were not able, this is their historic level of funding, they did request an additional $65,000 in funding, taking them from $370,000 to $435,000. Unfortunately, we were not able to find the funds for this request at this time, but I'm very hopeful that either through another source of funds or either at CDA or elsewhere that we can continue to support that program, and we are supporting them at our historic levels. In addition, you can find here our housing allocations, including $172,500 for down payment assistance and funding for our home repair program, which includes support to Mission St. Louis and the building division, as well as the home repair program loan pool, which is being maintained at its historic levels, as well as funding for affordable housing production and preservation, where between CDBG and home, we are allocating $4.3 million, which will then be awarded pursuant to a NOFA in spring 2026. On economic development, we are continuing to fund SLDC's economic development programs, and Justine Peterson, which has historically managed a CDBG micro-lending program. And we're also making new awards to T-Rex and Upwards Care, which are both going to be supporting small businesses, Upwards Care, small child care providers, and T-Rex entrepreneurs in particular in around GIS. So we're excited to support both these new programs. And to see our small businesses continue to grow. And then finally, we do have our facade program, whereby CDA provides small grants up to $50,000 to small businesses for facade improvements. And then finally, we are continuing to support the overhaul and redevelopment of the Clinton Peabody development. And we're excited to support here a holistic approach that goes beyond the buildings to also improve the streets and sidewalks around it. Finally, we have our planning and administration funding, which includes CDA admin, our team, the Comptroller's Office federal grants team, the planning department's admin team, and planning team. We support a lot of neighborhood planning through this program. SLDC's capacity building program, and the City Councilor's Office legal support that they provide. And with that, the last thing I'll note from a compliance perspective is that we are currently in our 30-day public comment period, and that public comment period ends November 12th, 2025. And we invite the public to attend a public hearing in person or virtually on Thursday, November 6th, 2025 at 1520 Market Street at 10:45 a.m. There's also the Zoom link info provided. And the public can always comment in writing at cdbg@stlouis-mo.gov. And so we welcome those comments and also welcome the committee's questions at this time.
Thank you. There we go. All right. Thank you for that presentation, Noel. And we'll take questions from the committee. I believe Alderwoman Keyes is online. Alderwoman Keys. We'll give her a minute. Alderman Browning.
Okay. Can you see me?
Oh, now I can.
Hello? Okay. No, I do not have any questions. Always happy to hear about the great things that Noel and his team are doing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you, Director. I really appreciate the thorough presentation, as well as just the things that the thoughtfulness and care in which you try to allocate these dollars. I understand the different scoring mechanisms this year and necessity of tightening our belts and figuring out where we can put things. But I just wanted to ask about one of my favorite organizations, which is the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, and saw that they're not receiving funds this year. Is that correct? And can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri has not historically been funded with CDBG, and in fact, to my knowledge, Rashonda, keep me honest, did not submit an application for CDBG funds. So we cannot fund programs that we don't receive applications for, unless those programs are municipal programs led by city departments. Historically, Legal Services of Eastern Missouri has been funded through SLDC, through a non-federal source of funds. However, I am aware of the need for additional funding for the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. And I have offered one idea as to a potential source, specifically the vacant building fund that was recently established, subject to public vote and follow-up legislation. And so we do anticipate receiving a portion of those funds. The legislation provided that CDA would receive, I believe, 50% of those funds to initiatives designed to reduce vacancy and vacant buildings. And so that's something that I've proposed, and I'm looking for confirmation from the City Councilor's office that that's an eligible use of those funds. And if so, we would love to work with Legal Services of Eastern Missouri to support their work.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. It makes sense to me. It strikes me that keeping people from being evicted would be a way to reduce vacancy. So that, I always view this two sides of the same coin, that vacancy is a lack of people. And I know that they do such a great job of helping people. So I really appreciate you looking out and continuing to look for ways to get them funding, and just appreciate the way you go about your job. Thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you. No questions. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you.
So noted.
Madam Clerk, is Alderwoman Saunier online?
Yes, she is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderwoman.
No worries. Hi, committee. Hello, Director. Nice to see you. My questions are, first of all, thank you for all the work you're doing. And my question is really just, I was very happy to see the amount of kind of food access things that we're funding this time, especially with the anticipated cuts to the SNAP program, and also anticipated cuts to the free and reduced lunch program that we have in our schools. And I saw that there's about a total of $321,355 going to food funding. I was just curious in general, given some of the cuts that we're seeing at the federal level. I know you kind of alluded to it earlier, and some of the new information that's coming with your federal government shutdown. I'm curious in general about ways you've seen. Have you seen like more of a surge in applicants from certain organizations around certain causes? And then a specific question around the food access piece, and any opportunities you see that may be in the near future to help to fund those efforts. Since that is, we have a lot of folks in our city. I think it's over 40% that receive grant and other benefits, and also our schools are going to be the free and reduced lunch program is challenged as well. And
Alderwoman,
being put on the post.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Yeah.
You're slightly muffled on our end, and when you're coupled that with your very fast cadence of speaking, we aren't getting a lot of what you're saying. I think some of us are picking up that you're talking about the SNAP benefits being eliminated in the state, but you're talking very fast and it's very muffled on our end, so we're not picking up most of what you're saying.
Is that it?
That's better.
Can you hear me, Nicole? Okay, thank you. I was just making note that I saw that about $321,300 were going to food pantry, the other organizations that help with food access. And I was asking, given the political climate and candidates that we see, what other opportunities Director Piper might see to help with that reduction. And just a general question, I know he alluded to federal effect area. If you are some surge enforcement type of any specific social service, whether it's food or housing access, just curious about more information that he might be observing through this application process and funding.
So I'm going to try to interpret that. The chair lady just asked if you could send an email because you're still a little muffled on our end. But it sounded to me as though she was asking about this services component to CDBG funding and what are we doing to address the anticipated shortfalls with respect to SNAP. If there's something else, Alderwoman, if you could just send an email to myself and I'll make sure that it's covered. But I think that was the kind of basis of your question here. So
yeah.
Director.
And thank you, Alderwoman, for the question. I also, unfortunately, was not able to hear precisely the dollar figure that you were referencing at one point, but I can speak a little bit to public services challenges and the food assistance that we provide. Last year, in 2024, over 1,500 city residents received CDBG-funded food assistance. And we have for some time now funded Northside Youth and Senior Services, Guardian Angel, Mission St. Louis, the St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, which in turn also funds Wesley House, and various other food pantries, including now Operation Food Search, that we're excited to add, in particular for their focus on tornado recovery food assistance. But the truth is, of course, that there's more need. And one of the constraints that we face is that under CDBG, we are not allowed to allocate more than 19% of our CDBG funds towards public services. And that's where food assistance falls as an eligible activity. And so we are very constrained on the public services side, which is why it's always our most competitive funding round. And that's where, again, if there are any opportunities for additional funding, certainly CDA, DHS, and the St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, and even the Affordable Housing Commission, we all fund different types of programs associated with food. We're also funding, for the first time through ARPA, some food growing initiatives, such as the Grow Farm, and I believe the Affordable Housing Commission is also funding HOSCO, and other kind of urban agriculture initiatives. And so I think that's an exciting development in recent years, but unfortunately we are limited in terms of how we can deploy CDBG funds to support that. Did that answer your question?
I've sent a question to both the chairwoman and to Alderman Collins.
Okay. She says that she sees that 321,355 being funded. What opportunities do you see for meeting this need, and what social services have you seen an increase for giving the state and federal cuts, whether food excess, housing, or other critical survival social programs? That 321,000 was for food access specifically, but in this funding, that what they have allocated, she wants you to know she's happy to see that.
Yes, and now I understand that the 321,000 seems to be you putting together the different agencies, right, that we're funding. I understand now. Thank you. So yes, we did expand our funding for food assistance. It is something that we consider more essential than ever. But I do think that we are seeing across the board, certainly the effects of the government shutdown in terms of the impact on access to these essential services. I think SNAP is one of the most salient. I'll share that thankfully we have been able to continue, we have continued to draw down funds from HUD more or less according to traditional processes. There was a brief point in late October when we had a processing pause that worried us a little bit, but we were able to get draws in before that pause and continue processing them. On the housing side, there are some deals that are being slowed down because HUD cannot provide requisite approvals, such as environmental review or RAD conversions or others, but it's not having as immediate an impact as obviously it is in the case of food stamps and access to food. So I think a trend that we're going to see in the coming years is as the federal government retreats from certain areas and from providing certain services, it's incumbent on us at the local level to be strategic in terms of how we can deploy our limited resources to help fill some of those gaps in order to protect our residents and ensure that basic needs are met. But yes, food assistance is a critical need, and that is why we did increase it this year.
Thank you. May I be added as co-sponsor?
So noted.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you again. I also would like to be added as a co-sponsor, Madam Clerk.
So noted.
And have anything that you'd like to close with, Madam Chair, on Board Bill 84?
No, I don't have any questions other than to thank you all for the support. Thank you, Director Pfeffer and your team for all of your continued hard work and efforts here. Make sure that people take advantage of their public comment section if they would like to leave comments or speak with them either again virtually or in person. And with that, I would like to ask for your favorable consideration and a due pass recommendation for Board Bill 84.
Is there a
Second.
That was not a motion, Alderwoman.
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 84 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved
Previous row.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the elevated 11th, that we pass Board Bill 84 with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Was Alderwoman Saunier on the previous roll?
Alderwoman Keys wasn't on the previous roll. Alderwoman Saunier.
I'll object to previous roll. Why not? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
You said aye.
Yes. Aye.
Vice Chair Saunier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 6 aye votes.
With that vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 14th to do pass Board Bill 84. Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
All righty. With that, do we have any resolutions for review?
We have none.
Okay. No committee discussions. Do we have written testimony?
We have none.
Okay. Does anyone have any announcements? I have an announcement. So we got to say happy birthday to the Arch. He's 60 years old today. I'm talking about development and bringing so. And speaking of that, there was a great documentary on 9 PBS last night about our brother in service and action, Percy Green, and all of the things that he did. But one of them we know he's well known for is providing jobs on the Arch development sites and amongst so many other things. My colleague was in it, so it's good. If you missed it last night, you have a second opportunity on Friday. And then for the things that were uplifted today, we are very aware and tracking about the looming shut-off of SNAP coming up amongst everything else that the city is going through. So please do not hesitate to reach out to your representatives, to your community, to your neighborhood organizations to see how they are helping. I know many people that have already been helping, like Urban League and other food banks. Westside Missionary Baptist Church does one every Thursday. Rung STL on the south side is going to be setting up a food bank. So many people are recognizing that this need is going to balloon overnight. And so just please don't be in a position where you don't reach out for help. With that, I'll accept a motion to very much excuse Alderwoman Schweitzer for an extremely necessary absence.
Second.
It's moved by everyone and seconded by everyone. We love you and we are so happy for you, Alderwoman Schweitzer. Continue to enjoy every second. And I'll accept a motion for adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Previous row.
Moved by Alderman Aldridge, seconded by Alderman Browning, that we adjourn with no objection in the previous row. Everyone have a blessed day.